In South Africa, HIV/AIDS is a political disease.
If you are not infected, you are affected.
There can be absolutely no dignity in dying if your president will not acknowledge your disease.
We have here people who are distributing pamphlets where it says that AZT kills. I give AZT every day to hundreds of people. So basically those people are telling me I'm a killer.
None of us then thought that this thing would endure for 5 years, or that we'd sit in 2005 and be faced with statistical evidence of 1.5 million people already having died, statistical evidence of a massive growth in adults' mortality, and a political leadership in this country which can still barely mention the word HIV or AIDS.
I had sexual activity without condoms, and I did have a worry, of course, that I might catch it. But of course, I was not ill. I had STIs, and for me, I grew up in a situation where you take STIs as just a normal way of growing up. I wanted to die sooner. I wanted to die before I get thin. I wanted to die before I get sores over my body. I wanted to die before I look like a corpse. I mean, I could see pictures, pictures of people dying of AIDS in the Cape Times or Argos. That was scary. It was scary. Everyone knew me. And I was thinking, should I get ill and lose weight and go all those AIDS-defining illnesses? It would be tragic for me and my family. And I wanted to shift it away. I tried to kill myself. And I think one of the things was that I was not dying quite soon.
The discussion of stigma outside of denial is plain wrong. That you can't use the word stigma without using the word denial. The two are, denial is a precursor to stigma. Stigma arises out of an inability, an understandable inability to face the reality, face the facts.
I shied away from talking to people. I shied away from expressing my emotions, directly or indirectly. I just started drinking a lot of alcohol. I had no idea, actually, the most troublesome, I had no idea how to communicate safe sex with my present girlfriends or with my future partners, anyway, directly or indirectly. That was most frustrating, and I think that made me to drink more alcohol than ever. And yeah, so I think that was a state of denial.
Denial is not an irrational state of mind. This is the argument that I've tried to develop. Denial is a rational reaction to an epidemic which is killing people at a young age all over the place. So you'll find any explanation that you can rationalize for this. The Americans did it. It doesn't exist. Whatever, you name it. Denial at a personal psychological level is an absolutely rational reaction to an epidemic of death.
The function of stigma, why we stigmatize certain things or certain people, is because it removes us from them. It creates an identity of me being separate to whatever the thing is that I'm stigmatizing. So what stigma does around HIV is it keeps me safe. If I can say those are the people with HIV, it means my vulnerability to be infected with HIV is less severe. I'm less likely to be infected with HIV because I'm not part of that.
People are dying a terrible death. And that brings people to stigma. And when people start stigmatizing, they're trying to say, get away from us. They fear you, they fear themselves. They try to kill themselves, they're trying to infect more people as much as possible because they don't want to die alone. And it's actually out of the fear that is actually getting out from death because of inaccessibility of treatment, care and support.
People, they believe that if you have HIV, you've got it because you've wanted it and you looked for it. And that's the attitude from people. It's that you've had HIV because you wanted it, you look for it, so suffer, it's your problem.
At every level of the middle class, in particular, the majority of people who carry the burden of openness about HIV are poor, desperate people. Because they rely on the public system and they have to be public about their HIV status. And there are more than 20 parliamentarians who draw on their private health care insurance to get antiretroviral therapy. There are more than 20 of them, but not one of them are open about it, for them or for their family members. And the reason for that is very simple. The middle classes can buy their privacy, and the stigma of sex, the stigma of race, the stigma of mainly sexuality, mainly sexuality, and the fear of death reinforces the close, the secrecy around HIV.
And people would rather die than take treatment, and people would rather die than even be diagnosed in many instances.
You have to break the link between HIV and death in order to free it up from stigma so people can start to think clearly about this and absorb all this good information one's giving them. They have not done that. And, they should have.
I'm openly living with HIV. In my community, I'm not discriminated against. Nobody talks against me or bad about me in any way, directly or indirectly. But people talk bad about people that are dying of HIV. They talk bad about people that are being wasted of HIV. And they don't talk bad to me because I'm well, healthy, and I walk around proudly as living with HIV.
Let's go and test. Let's go and know our status, where we stand with HIV. Then, if we know about it, that won't mean we'll die from HIV. It will mean we have enough courage as young people to face HIV and actually eradicate the stigma that exists around HIV. That's why we are encouraging you to go and test. The youth of 1976 took a stand. We are taking the stand today.
According to what I know, it was debated a bit more than 10 years ago, and the debate was closed, as far as I remember, in '94 by a couple of articles, mainly in AIDS, in Nature, saying the denialist side has not bring in any evidence, so let's close it because we lose our time. And unfortunately, this debate was revived here in South Africa much later, in a totally unexpected way.
Essentially what happens is our president gets convinced by AIDS denialists in 1999 that antiretrovirals cause AIDS, not HIV. And the rest is history.
Thabo Mbeki says, we don't need condoms, we don't need to wear condoms, we don't need to protect ourselves because there's no link between HIV and AIDS.
No, that's not true. You see,
but that's the effect.
It isn't.
Now, I don't believe that
it's a sensible thing to ask. Does one virus cause a syndrome? A virus cannot cause a syndrome.
AIDS workers in Soweto have said, you've damaged the campaign, you've muddied the waters.
I think that's a lot of nonsense.
And this is the liar. This is one of their biggest liars, a guy called Mr. Anthony Brink. He's the man who's responsible for our president not understanding that HIV causes AIDS.
The AIDS denialists promote three myths. They deny that HIV causes AIDS. They deny that antiretrovirals are an effective treatment for HIV. And they deny that there is a large epidemic in South Africa. Now, you get different types of AIDS denialists. What they all have in common is that they deny one of these facts, either that HIV causes AIDS, or that there's a large epidemic, or that antiretrovirals are a safe and effective mechanism for treating HIV.
Historically, what we've seen here since 1999 is that the biggest problem is that benign to the malign pass from one president to the next president, but the next president consciously organized around his convictions, whereas Nelson Mandela just omitted to deal with the problem significantly. He didn't try to get in the way of the officials in the Department of Health who were tasked with dealing the problem. He didn't actually dispute that there was a problem. He just didn't take, he didn't, somebody as his stature and command in society, he didn't put his weight at that point behind efforts at HIV control. Whereas Thabo Mbeki has done the opposite. Thabo Mbeki has we believe, secretly resourced or at least encouraged the less well-known adherents of denialism. He's encouraged and used both the state apparatus and the party apparatus of the ANC to advance some of the theses of denial and to attack the people who have attacked the denialism. And this strange situation has gone on for 6 years, and it's gone through a critical period of the HIV epidemic where, in around 98, 99, we crossed from a HIV into an AIDS epidemic.
On behalf of our government and the people of South Africa, I'm happy to welcome you to Durban and to our country. As I listened and heard the whole story told about our own country, it seemed to me that we could not blame everything on a single virus. The world's biggest killer and the greatest cause of ill health and suffering across the globe is listed almost at the end of the International Classification of Diseases. It is extreme poverty.
There's a direct link between poverty and disease that's been established by public health experts for years, and no one debated that. And so when Mbeki continued to make that debate, he was in fact debating with himself.
The president's understanding of poverty, or his use of poverty, is a decoy. If the president or the health minister were at all serious about poverty, this country would have seen an enormous social security expansion, which we need.
And Thabo Mbeki is a person of enormous political ambition, and it's not just political ambition that's driven by wanting to do good for society, it's political ambition that's driven by wanting to establish his name as the leader of the African Renaissance in history, as the person who took South Africa through the critical transformation period and so on. And that vision never contemplated the HIV. The HIV epidemic wasn't a calculation in that.
We are educating people to show them that there is hope, and we want them to become active to bring the prices down of those medications. Yes, it's not a cure, but we cannot stand by and let 150,000 people die every year in our country and millions in other countries as well, just because it will cost money. We cannot equate people's lives with money, and that is our stand.
Are celebrating after a coalition of the world's top pharmaceutical companies withdrew a legal action to protect their drug patents. The landmark decision allows South Africa to enact laws to broaden access to cheaper generic medicines for millions of AIDS sufferers.
This case has been going on for 3 years. It finished in 3 seconds. It clearly finished simply because of public pressure and international mobilization.
We don't believe that the only way to prevent mother-to-child transmission is by using antiretrovirals.
I ask everyone here to join us, to lie down, to show the government our friends have died, but we are not going to die.
This is the launch of our court case. We're calling upon the South African government to implement or to roll out the MTCT in all the MOUs in South Africa.
We make the following order. Sections 27(1) and 2 of the Constitution require the government to devise and implement within its available resources a comprehensive and coordinated program to realize progressively the rights of pregnant women and their newborn children to have access to health services to combat mother-to-child transmission of HIV.
Complete victory.
Will you stand by whatever the court decides?
No, I think the courts and the judiciary must also listen to the authorities, regulatory authorities, both from this country and the United States.
So you're saying no?
Yes, I know. I am saying no.
That is the work that Tech did and established AIDS and treatment access as a human right, and therefore argued that government needed to then fulfill that right.
We know from a report by Statistics South Africa that there was a 57% increase in the number of deaths in South Africa between 1997 and 2002. And when all is said and done, most of that increase can only be explained by the HIV epidemic.
We never ever believed that we would enter into Alice in Wonderland, into madness. Madness, that's the only way one can describe it. And I would go further and say, without a hint of exaggeration, to say criminal madness.
the results were so encouraging that we felt compelled, even though these were 18 patients, to present it directly to the people without waiting for a lengthy process of peer review journals, etc.
These are vitamin pills that are being distributed by a vitamin salesman by the name of Mathias Rath, who has come to South Africa and run a disinformation campaign. These pills contain an unregistered product called N-acetylcysteine. In addition to that, Rath is making claims about them which are untrue. He's claiming that they're a treatment for HIV. He's claiming that the real treatments for HIV antiretrovirals are not a treatment and that they actually poison people. And he's not allowed to do that in terms of the Medicines Act. So he's breaking the law by importing an unregistered medicine. He's breaking the law by making claims about it, which are false. And he's breaking the law further by running medical practices in a number of townships around Cape Town, where he's distributing these to people, claiming that it's a treatment for HIV.
I am here to say there is a solution to the HIV epidemic. Let me tell you something. Today I met some of the patients that were in this pilot nutrition program that I mentioned in the last hour. And these patients, they said, we made a little round and they said, well, I could only walk with canes before. Now I can go outside. One person was lying on bed. She can now cook for the children again. And one person even wants to go in a dancing lesson. It was a young person.
I saw people who has been taking Dr. Rath's tablets. They were very, very sick, and so much. We got 2 patients here who are coming from Dr. Rath's vitamin, multivitamin, whatever, I don't know. They were sick, some of them, they were vomiting the blood, and they couldn't find after that Dr. Rath. So they thought they must come back to MSF.
The label says it's a food supplement that should be taken 1 to 3 times a day. However, when patients are given these pills, they have to take it in. Some of the patients have had to take it in substantially larger doses than this. He's got other products which he's distributing as well. Also, mega doses of vitamins that he's distributing to patients. And the claims that he's making is much more than that it's just a nutritional supplement. The claim he's making is that this reverses the course of AIDS. He also claims that his vitamins treat heart disease, that they treat diabetes, and that they treat cancer. And he also claims that the conventional medical treatments for all of those diseases don't make those diseases better, they actually make them worse. And we've heard reports that some people have stopped taking the antiretrovirals because of the confusion that he's caused.
HIV counsellor Flora Tabella is visiting one of her patients. She's worried about the posters.
Our clients are very much confused. Like, I have a client that has already stopped taking antiretrovirals. I'm very concerned because people are going to die now. This client said, I'm fighting with my partner because he says I must stop taking antiretrovirals and the child needs to stop taking the antiretrovirals because there is something better that Dr. Rath is coming up with. And my heart was so sore because these people were very sick. Now they are confused.
Before I answer that, I'd like to give the mic to Marietta, who is a first-hand witness to answer your question, maybe from her personal experience.
Hello, I'm Marietta Nziba. I was diagnosed in 1999, and I was diagnosed in Grootsker, 1999. So I'm living with this HIV. So they transferred me to the other clinic 2001 while I was pregnant. After a week, I see changes in my body. There was something that is blasting. So I see changes. From then, I was right. And my CD4 count before, it was 341. And now, last month, it was 841.
Now I can talk, I can speak, I'm not afraid of anything.
And I just thank God that He brings Dr. Rath here in South Africa to help our lives. Why the people that they are telling lies about the vitamins? Because the vitamins help our lives. And the government said to us, if you've got something to help, come and bring that thing to help our lives. Why only Dr. Rath? Because who killed by the vitamin? Thank you.
He's an extremely dangerous man, a liar, a charlatan. He has a range of rulings against him from throughout the world. The US Food and Drug Administration has warned him about his false advertising. He has rulings against him from the British Advertising Standards Authority, from the South African Advertising Standards Authority. And he has been condemned by numerous groups, including the United Nations, the World Health Organization, Médecins Sans Frontières, and the Congress of South African Trade Unions, just to name a few. To date, nothing has been done by the Medicines Control Council, nor by the police to stop Mathias Rath from his illegal actions.
Now that the word is out, that there is a natural remedy for the control of AIDS, the immune deficiency, this genie cannot be put back into the bottle anymore. So you see, some people have made it a pastime to haunt Dr. Rath, but in fact, I've already accomplished my goal.
For the first time, in so-called Health in Bizo, which is a sort of gathering about health issue, that was organized by the minister herself. She doesn't come regularly in Kailicha. It was about a month ago on a Saturday morning in one of the big community health centers in South Sea. And as she doesn't come regularly, and I'm not used to listen to her in person, I decided to come.
It's been indicated to us that people who are in need of ARVs are being discouraged from using ARVs right here inside Kailicha. Mantu hasn't distanced herself from Mathias Rath Foundation. In fact, she stated that the Mathias Rath Foundation is supporting the program of government on HIV. We're here to support the community members of Site C who have been fighting for their right to treatment, the right to ARVs, and we'll see what happens in their presentation.
The charge has been laid against them, they'll be investigated. He's just a cameraman. Sorry? And that's the guy you're looking for. He's the main guy.
What a nice introduction for her. Wait, what for a guy is he?
He's from the Rath Foundation. I know that for a fact.
They promote drugs, so what are they doing?
They are promoting Rath's vitamins as a treatment for AIDS.
And does it work?
No, it doesn't.
Who do you know?
Huh?
Who do you know?
How do I know? Well, the World Health Organization has released a statement saying so.
So when we get in here, everything has to be in order. We don't want any funny things. Everybody is welcome to go in, but no funny things inside the hall.
What has been funny mean? I need to know who to
They've done what they say, they've broken the law by conducting experiments on people without Medicines Control Council permission.
And to my big surprise, Dr. Rath was there. It was my first time to see him physically. And not only he was there, but he was sitting in the front row. I don't pretend to be a hero, but I think I've done my bit for Kailicha. I was in the back row, and the Minister of Health didn't salute me, but Dr. Rath was on the front row. Mathias Rath is killing people, and I think he was there, invited by the Minister of Health herself, yes.
It's really a pleasure for me to be here and also to welcome our National Minister of Health in Kailicha and in the Western Cape this morning. Our Minister is very busy She was up till very late last night, but she came down this morning to be with us, to be with you, to be with her people in Khayelitsha. And for that we say thank you very much.
Ngizolalela ingxaki zenu, ngizolala ukuthi nihlushwa yini, bese kuzothi ke egcineni zikhona izinto engizonithembisa zona umphakathi waseKhayelitsha. Thokozisayo ukuthi njengoba sasishilo ukuthi kuyothi kuphela unyaka seloku siyiqalile i-comprehensive plan yethu, siyobe sesikuma district ayi-53, sesikwenzile lokho. Phinde ngichaze ke ukuthi eziphi futhi ezinye izinto esizenzileyo. Kodwa okusemqoka kithina ukuthi siziphatha kanjani lento esihlale siyibiza ABC, abstinence, being faithful, nokusebenzisa icondom. Naloko futhi sizokuchaza. Kodwa ngifuna ukukhuluma kabanzi manje, angilalele nini ukuthi izikhalazo zenu zithini ukuze sikwazi ukuphendula. Ngizeke nama officials
abantu kusebenza bayabaleka lezi ngenxa ye-treatment ye-ARVs kuba kuye kwaphuma amaphepheni kwa-ARVs azincedi abantu, so abantu bayabaleka and zingozi. So ngizama ukubuza bakumenisa ingaba i-ARVs ziluncedo ukuthi nawo okanye ziluncedo na ngenxa yoba abantu bayabaleka and ndinalo ngxaki ndifuna iqonda.
Tja i-3TC i-AZT ne-favorance i-consent yam yokuba abantu abaninzi bayafa ngenxa ye-confusion ka-Dr. Mathias Rath yokuthi i-ARVs zithozi especially i-AZT ne-nevirapine. Uthi abantu abangomama ababelekayo besitya i-AZT ne-nevirapine bazala abantwana abazizidalwa. Nako mna ndiyayitya i-nevirapine, ndiyayitya i-AZT, kodwa ndikule ndawo ngenxa yezi ARVs. Ngozi.
Abantu bazekile i-ARVs nge-confusion eqhubekayo apha eKhayelitsha. Nabantu basuka emaXhoseni asanodiagnoswa abafuna utya i-ARVs, bathi i-ARVs kuthiwa azilunganga. Ndifuna uminister sicacisele ncakasana i-ARVs ngephi ezirongo, ngeyiphi i-ARV irongo. Mhlawumbi if ukuthi AZT irongo phi, because banintsi abantu batya i-ARVs abatya i-AZT endibaziyo mna endathenda nabo i-support group baneminyaka ngaphezulu nam betya i-AZT. Ndifuna nicacise uminister ncakasana ngeyiphi ezi ARVs zirongo. Kutheni ezikhupha urhulumente i-ARVs kanti zirongo?
Educator kwi-clinics for TAC about i-ARVs. Kwinyanga ezidluleyo okanye kwiveki ezidluleyo ndifumene ifriend yam iphethe ii-tablets ithi zifumana ezolane center kuDr. Rath nomgubo osesipoponini, ithi kuthiwa makathathe 18 tablets a day. Yiva 18 tablets a day. Confused ke make yathi kuthiwa yi-cure, and then uDr. Rath he promised ngemali 708 after athe i-treatment. Abangamamela uconfuswa ngabantu. Ndiphinde ndithi question yam umama uMantu Tshabalala Msimanga makandixelele namhlanje ndiyeke uTAC okanye ndiye kuDr. Rath. Enkosi.
Into esemqoka ukuthi sazi ukuthi sasilwelani, masasilwela nenkululeko. Sasingalweli ukuxovana, sasilwela ukubambisana. Angijabhe nje, ngisho ukuthi ngiyajabha impela ukuthi ngithe ngawukhuluma ngoma TB, ngawukhuluma ngoma hypertension, nayishintsha lenhlanganiso kwaba inhlanganiso yenculaza. Besingezanga ngaloko, besize ngokuzokhuluma about healthy lifestyles. But nikhuluma ngathi anazi ukuthi kuna comprehensive plan. iplan yethu ukuthi sizokwenza njani ngebanga lengculazi eSouth Africa. I just hear one thing only. But that can't be correct. And it's not for me to tell you which organization to join. Ubuza mina ukuthi uye ku-TAC noma uye ku-Dr. Rath. That's your choice. In this country, we make choices. There's freedom of speech in this country. It's a democratic country. Angmazi uRath noma uregistered noma akakho registered. I-8 PCSA okuyona eyositshela. I don't know. I really don't know. Prevention is absolutely critical. I-prevention ke ikakhulukazi entsheni isho ukuthi you must abstain. Kusho i-comprehensive plan yethu akusho mina i-comprehensive plan yethu eya-approve uhulumeni ithi you must abstain. Uma ngabe uhluleka ku-abstainer sewuno-boyfriend, you must be faithful to that boyfriend or that partner of yours. If you can't do any of the two, then you must use a condom, says the comprehensive plan of this country. It's not my comprehensive plan. It is the comprehensive plan that we all applauded when government announced it, isn't it? But over and above, it says nutrition is key also. Kusho ukuthi lokho ungasuhlala iminyaka ewu-20 ewu-25 ungakazi ugula. If the antiretrovirals can do so and you accept them, leave other people to choose what they want. If they want to eat properly so that they can boost their immune system, so be it. If they want to choose to take micronutrients, so be it. Goba, there is no cure for HIV and AIDS. And we really can't even set proper policies because the scientists themselves have really not given us the tools for us to be able to formulate the necessary policies. You see, in a verapin, yes, you can take it, but you must remember that 70% of pregnant women do not pass the virus to their baby, 70%. Antiretrovirals have got serious effects, side effects. They do. They do have very serious side effects. Unlike in nutrition has no side effects. What I'm trying to say, the issue of HIV and AIDS is a very complicated issue. It's complicated even for the scientists themselves. They are looking for different options as to what can happen. Support groups are absolutely critical. Not support groups which sit and plan how are we going to criticize government. And I think very soon we should be able to put some of these traditional medicines on the shelves so that people can use the traditional medicines and they are cheaper than the antiretrovirals. I don't think anybody can refute that. I am not saying people who want antiretrovirals must not use them. We will do the best that we can. It is you who elected us. And therefore, if you want those antiretrovirals, we will give them to you. But we will always give them to you with caution.
Those people who are saying so, the Rath Foundation, are killers. They are the killers because they are saying, first, is it is toxic, and try to confuse people not to take them, and secondly, they are distributing pills that are mimicking the antiretroviral. So they're confusing the people. So I came here to have a decision from the Minister of Health to say who is right, who is wrong. Are they the killer or am I the killer? And what I heard it today is that it's the same. It's all the same. Whether you give nutrition or ARVs, it's just the same. And I cannot accept this. I cannot accept this. I give a lot of multivitamins, but I know very well what ARV have been doing here. I know very well what AZT has been doing for MTCT in this community. And to have the Minister of Health to say what those guys who are telling me I'm a killer are saying is as good as what you are saying. There are limits under the name of democracy. No, there are limits to democracy. I mean, Hitler was speaking under the name of democracy as well. But there are limits of democracy in the world, in the word you can use. Otherwise, it's just chaos. It's total chaos today in Kailicha.
Rath must leave the country because he can't bear to kill our people.
Communities. Yes. They are corrupt. They have been kicked. Their adverts have been kicked out of Europe. Their adverts have been kicked out of the United States. They have used the internet to peddle cures for cancer, for heart disease, and they've been stopped in other countries. They will be stopped here. Not about whether ARVs work or not. Yes! This court case is about whether or not TAC takes money from drug companies. Yes! And we know that that is a lie. We hope, most importantly, that people with HIV will stop being confused because he's experimenting on poor people.
Our backwardness. And when I say our, I don't mean black people, I don't mean poor people. I mean every middle-class, educated person. Our scientific illiteracy is being exploited for political reasons and for profit.
1990 I got tested, right? That is why I'm still here today. So if you want to be here 25 years from now, get tested now. Look after yourself. Eat well. Make sure you take the government vitamins, not Dr. Rath's pills. Make sure you take the government pills, not Dr. Rath's pills. He's not a doctor. And then make sure that when you need antiretroviral treatment, you get it.
What we presented here in the pilot study will be repeated and can be repeated from Vladivostok to Buenos Aires and from Stockholm to Nairobi. And no one can stop this.
The Minister of Health has created a climate in the country where pseudoscience is tolerated, where AIDS denialism is seen as government thinking. And this opens the door for quacks like not only Mathias Rath, but other people like Tina van der Maas, who promotes garlic treatments, and all sorts of cranks to exploit people.
Our backwardness, and when I say our, I don't mean black people, I don't mean poor people. I mean every middle-class, educated person. Our scientific illiteracy is being exploited for political reasons and for profit.
This guy, Mathias Rath's adverts were running in the Mail and Guardian and other newspapers, carrying on about the pharmaceutical industries, this worldwide conspiracy, blah, 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 blah. But he wasn't saying anything about antiretrovirals specifically in those adverts, or about TAC. At some point, some agency brought the minister and Rath into the same room. And I think Anthony Brink, Rath's sidekick and lieutenant, locally, denialist, had a big role to play in this. But the question is, who was behind Anthony Brink? To my mind, if you then look at the new style of adverts which started to appear, which resulted in the Advertising Standards Authority banning Rath's advert, if you look at those adverts, they were written in the crude kind of language which the state agencies used when they were in the 80s and so on, when they were trying to get at various kinds of legal opposition in South Africa, in the United Democratic Front, in the End Conscription Committee, and so on, when they would put out counter-propaganda in various forms. And the nature of the writing in those ads just rings such a bell of underground operatives, not very bright, not very smart, but very thuggish and thick, penning their poison, you know. That's what it feels like to me. It feels like the state. There's no one else who can pull shit like that together.
We've seen that denialism is a hydra, and Rath is the latest manifestation of, or the latest thing that denialism has gripped onto to support itself, and Rath has really funded denialism, I think. I mean, it's traditional denialism that's had an injection of cash from the Rath Foundation. I don't think Rath is here for a very long time, but I don't think this court case will be the end of Rath. I mean, I think that TAC will outlive Rath, because TAC is on the side of science and saving people's lives and a very real HIV epidemic that is not just going to be wished away by politicians.
Even if you ask a president that question, do you know someone with HIV? They have no idea, because should you know someone with HIV? I mean, his own spokesperson, Pax Makatlana, died of HIV. His friend, Peter Mokaba, died of HIV. Some of his family members have HIV. Should you ask him, do you know anyone with HIV? He say no. Because for him to acknowledge that there's someone with HIV, then he acknowledges the existence of that virus that leads to HIV, that leads to AIDS. So it's all about denialism. It's a terrible thing.
Thabo was pictured going to an AIDS orphanage with a whole lot of children living with HIV. And he sat in a chair. He looked like he had a poker up his ass while these kids were clambering around him and on him. He looked completely frigid with fear. And it's evident in his face. But you can see this man was terrified of HIV. He was terrified of contamination with HIV. The message of this, what this disease is and isn't, had just not penetrated his mind. What had penetrated his mind was that it appeared as though black people were suffering disproportionately from HIV and AIDS.
We are dealing with deep self-stigmatization and psychological fear. And the self-stigmatization arises in this way, is that President Mbeki is so concerned with what white people think of black people and what the West thinks of Africa, that it clouds his judgment on economic policy, most importantly on his AIDS policy. And on almost every single policy, his judgment is clouded by what the West thinks of Africa and what white people think of black people. And that, in fact, gives white people in the West so much power that they actually don't have. It's crazy. And it's costing lives.
Why in America did it not get out into the heterosexual population and it stayed with the arse fuckers, and here it did get out amongst the heterosexual population? That's the question he asked.
What happened between 85 and the beginning of the 90s? Whereas the situation did not change in the United States up to today, didn't change in Western Europe with regard to homosexual transmission, but here it changed very radically in a short period of time and increased very radically in a short period of time. Why? We started communicating with some of the people in this room to ask what is the cause?
So you can see the framework within which he was approaching the question. Stigma was uppermost in his mind, an internalized stigma that he reinforced and accepted as a verity. So now what he had to do is he had to champion the cause of the black nation by denying that HIV exists and by ascribing the consequences of HIV to Western imperialism, to poverty, and all those other things, while of course in his own policies following the World Bank and all their prescriptions, which reinforce poverty and create enclave capitalism with a booming middle class that's doing fantastically and a vast majority of poor people who struggle to survive. So it's a mess of contradictions. How does he get out of that mess of contradictions? Denialism. And it's cast in a racialized mold. You know? That if this thing were true, it means that the black nation is promiscuous. And we can't accept that.
I mean, some of my friends are dying of AIDS. They die of AIDS. It's only when they die of AIDS that they recognize the existence of it. And because they are part of the middle class system. They're part of the apology group that want to apologize on behalf of all black people.
As long as there's denial from the president, from the Minister of Health, or implicit denial from them, the disease will continue to be stigmatized. Because in South Africa, which is a relatively new democracy where only one political party really has any real chance of retaining power for the short term, people look to the president and their leaders for guidance. And when the president is equivocating on whether HIV causes AIDS, on whether it's sexually transmitted, and equivocating on providing treatment to people, then people are going to be scared. They won't want to be tested for HIV. If they are tested for HIV and they find themselves to be HIV positive, the lure of denial, the lure of denying that they're really sick, is very, very strong, and it's given impetus by the president and the Minister of Health's denial. Unfortunately, with HIV, that's a sure path to a quick death, and many, many people are dying because they remain in a state of denial about the disease.
History will judge Mbeki, and it will judge the health minister and many of those who have chosen to be silent very harshly, because we haven't seen the real impact of the denialism yet. We're starting to see it, but we're going to have huge numbers of people die, and we're going to start seeing the other social impacts of this, and it's not going to be good.
In this country, everybody knows, most people now know that there's an HIV epidemic, and therefore most people now know, or should know, that it would benefit them to know their own HIV status. But into those two understandable fears is now injected a lot of state and presidential sanctioned confusion that I think for the human mind, for the fearful human mind, would provide straws for people to grip onto to say, no, I shouldn't have a test because there's still a question as to whether HIV is even, there is such a thing, or no, I shouldn't have an HIV test because there's no treatment out there, and the treatment that is out there, the president says, is poison. You know, within the ANC, I mean, you look at how few people in the ANC have disclosed their HIV status. Well, you know, if you're an ANC leader, how can you disclose your HIV status in a party which is questioning the very existence of HIV? And we know senior ANC leaders who have HIV who are not open about their HIV status beyond a very small circle of people, and who really could and should be open about their HIV status if there was a different political environment around HIV within the party.
If our president spoke about HIV and took a public test himself, it would change people's understanding.
Would you take an HIV/AIDS test?
The matter of
whether I take an HIV test or not, I think is irrelevant to the matter. It might be dramatic and make newspaper headlines.
But would it not set an example? The president taking an AIDS test?
No, but it's setting an example within the context of a particular paradigm. Science does not have enough answers to deal with this question.
If our health minister took a public HIV test, as she did for her hypertension, blood pressure, the result of which I believe has not been made public because it's so high. If that were done, it would lift all the prejudice, the fear, and so on. It wouldn't do it automatically, but it would certainly go a long way towards doing it. And most importantly, rolling out antiretroviral therapy, making sure that all the opportunistic infections are treated, making sure that people who need food get food, people who need micronutrient supplementation, whether it's multivitamins or anything else, get it.
People are more likely to listen to prevention advice and to, health and lifestyle advice when they see that society cares about them. And treatment is a signal that somebody cares, the health worker cares, and that the health system hasn't totally given up on us, and that in fact the government is trying to assist. And so people start seeing themselves as people who have rights and who have a dignity that then helps them to start changing their own attitude toward themselves.
Given that we support people's right to privacy and autonomy, there's a very important element that goes with it, and that is openness. And there the problem has been that the state and the AIDS industry have created an environment where the only thing people living with HIV do is get up and say, I live with HIV, please look at me. This is the face of HIV. That is not openness.
Public AIDS discourse in South Africa is in a mess. And that's why they run courses for journalists to try to teach them how to talk about it. It is in a big mess. And we still are in an era in South Africa, in the printed media, in 2005, of AIDS victims and sufferers and all of this kind of stuff, which would be regarded, I suspect, as politically incorrect in Canada. It's the common parlance of the press. Although we were late in developing an ARV protocol, that's true, very late, and tragically late. Nonetheless, the protocols themselves are not bad. And even before the ARV protocol came out, the basic treatment guidelines which we had were very good and covered most of the OIs in a proper way. We had an emphasis on STIs. All of the stuff was there. But how do you communicate what a drippy dick is and how you deal with it, or drippy whatever, that has never been done. And it still hasn't been done now. That's why I say that the HIV communications basically is fucked.
Openness about HIV is making HIV everyone's problem, not just people living with HIV. So people talk about their own sex habits, whether they have HIV or don't. They talk about healthcare, whether they have HIV or don't. They talk about behavior towards women, towards men. They talk about social relations. They talk about economic relationships in the context of HIV, because it impacts on every aspect of our political economy HIV impacts on. So in that sense, openness about HIV will lift the stigma. And we've come an enormous way from where we were. I promise you, it's phenomenal. If we had 2 million HIV positive T-shirts, we would distribute them in a day.
So how do you break through it if death is the driver of the denial, which is giving rise to the stigma and the discrimination? You show that it is not death. You cut the link between HIV and death, which you do ultimately through ARV treatment, and added to that nutrition and good lifestyles and early and effective treatment of opportunistic infections, and safer sex and so on. All those things taken together give you a successful life with HIV, and now you're not dying, so now you don't need to be in denial, so now you don't need to be afraid anymore, and so on. And if you are not infected at the same time, you lose some of that fear that you had of the disease, because you see other people living successfully with it. So you say, look, Christ, I know I've been doing unsafe sex. But you know what? If it happens that I seroconvert, it's also not the end of the world, because I can be like Vuyani, and I can be like Matthew, and I can be like all these other guys, Linda, you know, I can be like, so I don't need to be afraid. It's unfortunate, should it happen. Hope you think that. And I'll try to prevent it, but it's not the end of the world if it does happen. So you get over that fear. So now you're more ready to test, because you know that you can cope if the test is positive. And you're not going to go into that hate the world, want to take everybody with me, not going down alone, all of that kind of stuff, you know. You don't go into that mode, and you have a much more rational reaction based on some sort of predictable scientific understanding of what's going to happen.
It has become normal to me in such a way that I'm so used to HIV that it's in my body. When I wake up in the morning, I say, hey, HIV, how are you this morning? It's time to get to work. And if I feel a little bit sick, I say, excuse me, I've got no time. We have to go out and work. So I'm living really a normal life, and I'm enjoying my life even more than I used to before. I live one day at a time, and I live it up to its fullest.
Nobody has power with your life. You've got a power with your life. Nguwe onamandla ngobomi bakho. And be proud of your life. And be proud of your status. Because when you know your status, you know your direction. You've got a guideline. I don't have to be here because of ABC. Then fight for the treatment. ARVs viva! ARVs viva! Amandla! Amandla! Phambili ngotek phambili! Shine ngaye! Shine! Those who are tested, shine! Viva PWS! Viva! Viva PWS! Viva! Amandla! Amandla!
Bonaje ufaza uhlekisa ngathi bonaje ufaza uhlekisa ngathi bonaje umata uhlekisa ngathi bonaje umbeki uhlekisa ngathi silobani kumzuzu baphume baphele silobani kumzuzu baphume baphele bonaje ufaza uhlekisa ngathi bonaje umata uhlekisa ngathi bonaje umbeki uhlekisa ngathi silobani kumzuzu baphume baphele silobani kumzuzu baphume baphele bonaje ufaza uhlekisa ngathi bonaje umata uhlekisa ngathi bonaje umbeki uhlekisa ngathi silobani kumzuzu baphume baphele silobani kumzuzu baphume baphele bonaje ufaza uhlekisa ngathi bonaje umato uhlekisa ngathi